Is everybody ready to begin?
Yeah.
Great! Well, you might be wondering why a 12-year-old is teaching you about acing your state writing lesson and beyond. My name is Adora. At the age of 7, I published my first book, Blind Fingers, Master the Tools of Learning Through the Joy of Writing. And more recently, I've published a second book. It's called Dancing Fingers, and it's a book of poetry that I co-authored with my older sister, Adriana. So personal narrative is one of my favorite topics, and it's a really interesting thing to write about. Now, I want to start by asking you, what do you know about personal narrative?
Personal narrative.
Well, let's start by saying simpler. A narrative. You can take off the first one. What is a narrative? Does anybody want to guess?
What's a narrative?
Well, a narrative is basically a story. So we know that a narrative is a story. Now, some examples of narratives are The Lord of the Rings, and so is your favorite cartoon. That's a narrative too. Now, what are some other examples of narratives? Who would like to come up with another example of a narrative? So raise your hand if you've read a story this week or these 2 weeks. Has anybody read a story over this week or the last week? I see some raised hands. So if you have read a story over this week or the last week, that means that you have read a narrative, because a narrative is a story. Who would like to tell me what they read? What are some examples of narratives? And could the teacher please call them?
Karen.
My mama had made me little pigs in my lip.
I'm sorry?
My mom made me read 3 little pigs to my little cousin.
Okay, so you have to read the 3 Little Pigs to a sibling. Yeah, that is definitely an example of a narrative. So I actually have a baby cousin, and I had to read to her The Wizard of Oz. It was a shortened version, of course. So let's get one more example of a narrative. What is a story you have read?
Go ahead, Cheyenne.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, great. So these are all narratives or stories. Now, the 3 Little Pigs, The Wizard of Oz, and Harry Potter, are these fiction or are they nonfiction?
Fiction.
Well, what is fiction?
Not real.
Not real fake.
Not real, right. Is The Wizard of Oz real?
No.
No, so and the 3 Little Pigs and Harry Potter I don't think are either. So these are all fiction. In other words, these stories are fictional narratives. Now, fictional narratives aren't the only kind of story out there. Stories from your own life are narratives too. We call those personal narratives. So a story from your own life is called a personal narrative, and today we're going to learn how to choose a good personal narrative from your life to write about an experience. So let's start with, what kinds of stories do you like? What kinds of stories do you like?
Malik.
Fighting? He said fighting stories.
Okay, so fighting stories, yeah. So fighting, kind of action. Any other types of stories you like?
Mystery.
Mystery? Mm-hmm.